This is Troy Smith, and I'm going to teach you how to film and edit a matched action sequence. Matched action is when it looks like one action or one sequence of events happens at one time shot by multiple cameras. It looks very natural, as if the cameras were switching angles while the action was taking place. But the reality is, with people like you and me and the budgets that we have, we probably don't have the means to shoot with 2 or more cameras at a time for one single action, so we have to fake it. Matched action is highlighted by something called cuts on action. Cuts on action is when we're going to cut in the middle of an action to a different angle. And in order to do that, this is what you need to do. When you are working with your actor, you need to block out their movements for a specific scene. And then you need to film from each angle the entire action so that you don't miss anything. You don't want to shoot bits and pieces of an action. You want to shoot the whole thing. And so what happened here is I filmed a little action sequence here. So first thing I do is I work with my actor. This is my son. He's got a little sunburn on his nose. And he is going to do this little action sequence of loading his gun and some specific things. So we blocked it out. We choreographed it, and he rehearsed it before I even shot it. That way he knew and I knew what exactly had to happen at each step. Then I filmed it from each angle, and I filmed the entire sequence, the entire action sequence from each angle. On my timeline down here, I call this stair stepping. And what stair stepping is when you put each individual angle, whether you have one shot or multiple shots of a specific angle, you put it on its own video track. Now I took the audio out so we don't have to hear me giving him direction, because I wasn't going to use that anyway. And then so for here we have the first scene, and then he walks in, puts him in his pocket, and he does the same thing every single time. Then he looks over his shoulder again, grabs the gun, and then loads 3 bullets into the gun itself. And then he looks to the right here, and then he looks to the left and fires. And so we practice this numerous times. And so what happens is then we shoot the exact same thing from other angles. So here we have a low angle medium shot. He does the exact same motions. He doesn't ad lib. He doesn't do anything, extra. He doesn't grab anything with the wrong hands. If he did, we'd shoot it. We would reshoot it. Then here on the track number 3, we just have some close-up insert shots of him grabbing the bullets. Now you don't need to shoot the whole scene from an insert perspective, but it helps if you want to. And then here I decided to get an over-the-shoulder medium close-up. And so he does the exact same actions. He looks over the shoulder and he grabs things. Now even though we don't see the table, he still has the same shoulder movements. And what happens with that is that we can match that up later. So we don't want to go piece by piece. We want to just shoot the whole thing even if we don't see it. Here we have some insert shots of him putting it into his pocket. I just needed a moment of that. And then on video track number 6, we have an over-the-shoulder shot, high angle over-the-shoulder shot of him doing some things. And I actually had him shoot past the camera. Kind of some fun stuff right there. So again, just to recap, you want to block out your action with your actors, and then you want to make sure that you film the whole action sequence completely through from each different angle. And then you want to stair step it on your video timeline like this so that you can keep each shot individual and separated. Now if you have multiple takes of a shot, you would just actually keep them going out on the same track, okay? The next step we're going to do is we call this marking. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put a marker of every action. So in the middle of every action, we're going to see a marker. And I'm going to zoom in on this chunk right here. This is our medium long shot. So here he's going to grab for the bullet and he's going to put it in his pocket. So in the halfway point between him grabbing it and putting it in his pocket, we put a marker right down here. All right. And then as he grabs the next one, as he reaches forward, we put another marker there. And then when he comes back halfway through, we put another marker there. So every single action, we're going to put a marker halfway through. Now here he's turning his head. Yeah, even here we're going to put a marker as he starts to turn his head back in the middle of his action. And then as he starts to turn his head back towards the table, we're going to put another marker in the middle of the action there, as you can see down here. And then of course he reaches for more bullets, and halfway into reaching for a bullet, we're going to put another marker. And so this goes on, and you have to be very specific about these actions. So right here he is loading or grabbing the gun. We put a marker there. Then we put a marker as he halfway to loading the first bullet, and then halfway to the second bullet, and then halfway down to grabbing, or I'm sorry, halfway down to grabbing the second bullet, I should say. And on it goes until, and then he turns his head here, so we put a marker halfway to turning his head, and then a halfway marker right here to as he's beginning to aim his gun. And so what that does for us is it puts markers in between all of his actions, in the middle of all of his actions, so we can use that to make our markers for when we want to do what's called a cut on action. And a cut on action is where we get the most bang for our buck. Once we have marked all of our clips and have cut them on the marks in between all of the actions in the middle of an action, then we start to puzzle piece them together over on the left side of the screen. And so what I do is I keep those pieces, those chunks together on the same video track that they were on originally, so that I can see how often a certain shot was used. So here we can see I used this specific shot once, twice, 3, 4 times in the editing sequence. And so it gives me an idea of what my rhythm looks like for editing. And it also allows us to adjust any clips if we cut it a little too short or a little too long. We can very easily adjust it without having to move an entire row of stuff. Like we don't have to grab all this and move this off to the right, adjust something and move it all to the left. So it's just good to keep it like this for quite a while and adjust it and fine tune it. And this is called puzzle piecing. And so once we puzzle piece it together, the actions should end up right on with another action in terms of we're going to go from this shot as he turns his head. It matches up with the same angle. So like here, he's gonna turn his head, and then his head is about the same spot. So that's called a cut on action. And then when we go to the next one, he reaches forward with his arm, and then right about the same spot, his arm is at the same spot in the next shot. So here he's putting on his glasses, and his hands are about halfway through, and then here they're pretty close to being exactly the same spot. So you want to get your shots lined up where one shot ends, the other one should begin. Now it's okay if you get a little bit past where the last shot was, because the brain actually needs to catch up. So if you go a little bit past it, that's usually okay. Okay, and then we just do that all the way through this. Okay, and so now I don't do a cut on action on every single action, but I did it on most of them. So here there's quite a few cuts on action in just a simple little sequence using these 5 different angles that we're going to use. And so here I'm going to play for you what this action sequence looks like. And so that's the sequence that we worked on and had some really good cuts on action. Again, not cuts on every single bit of action, but it pretty much where one shot ended, the other shot picked up. And so that's what the whole point of cutting on action does for us. Again, matched action is the natural length of time, and it looks like it happened one time with multiple cameras. A cut on action is when you cut in the middle of an action to a different angle and the shot is at the same place of the action there where you left off. We also want to make sure that we block our scene with our actors, rehearse it, choreograph it, shoot the entire scene from each angle that you want to use, then go through, stair step it like we have back here, stair step, put each angle, as many takes as you have for that angle, on its own video track. Go ahead, mark in between every, in the middle of every action, then cut it and blade it up, then start to puzzle piece it together, keeping the shots on their same track and fine-tuning it, and then whatever you want to do, add some music or whatever to it in the end, and then you have a nicely made matched action sequence. Thank you very much.